President Trump invoking the Defense Production Act to stop the export of crucial medical supplies leaving the U.S., Ainsley.
Yes, that's right, Brian. Just last night, the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Senator Chuck Schumer, they sat down, they talked about how to implement the act, even discussing a czar to maybe oversee production and distribution.
Here with more is the Defense Production Act Policy Coordinator at the administration, Peter Navarro. Peter, good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us from the White House.
Great
so
to be
tell
with
us
you this
more
morning.
about the conversation between Chuck Schumer and Mark Meadows last night. What is Chuck Schumer interested in?
I'll let Mark and Chuck report to you directly, but the issue is basically how to use the Defense Production Act productively to save lives in America. And really, there's three ways to use it. One is in the allocation of resources we have, which is to make sure that the supply chain has enough so that we can make the ventilators. We don't want to run out of components in the supply chain. We also, in terms of allocation, want to make sure that when we manufacture something, it gets to the right people. The other second thing is mobilization of the industrial base, and that can mean repurposing factories like GM and Ford are now turning their auto production into making ventilators. And the third thing basically is cracking down on the kind of black market and profiteering that has arisen. And so far, President Trump has signed numerous Defense Production Act orders acting on all of those fronts. A GM order to get them to make ventilators, an allocation order to help the ventilators manufacturers have enough components, and we are locked and loaded right today at the border with Customs and Border Protection, ready to crack down on black market profiteering in this country. And the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, has already busted somebody in New York and New Jersey, and that within 24 hours of grabbing 80,000 masks, those were get sent to the front lines of the war on the virus in New York. So that's what the Defense Production Act debate is all about, and the President is using it every day, using his orders.
Right, and I know you're doing a great job behind the scenes just trying to get the whole world together, Peter. Let's just talk about an Axios report that yesterday in the Situation Room, you walked in very proud of acquiring more hydroxychloroquine, and Dr. Fauci was very negative on it, and evidently you guys had a heated exchange. Can you shed some light on that for us?
Sure. There was no pride there. It was simply on Saturday there was a meeting of the task force, and the question before the task force was this, Brian. We have 29 million tablets of hydroxy in FEMA warehouses, and the question before the group was, should we surge that hydroxy into the hot zones? And the task force unanimously voted to do that with the proviso that this can have side effects and that it has to be dispensed not by the federal government but by the patient-doctor relationship. The third thing I can tell you about the meeting and the discussion was there was some discussion about the numerous studies that are out with regard to efficacy. It is true there is no 100% proof that this works. On the other hand, there's numerous studies that are coming out now, including the latest one, which is randomized, that shows therapeutic efficacy. The other thing I should tell you is that in the city of New York, if you're a patient in the New York Health and Hospital System, which is 11 hospitals run by Dr. Mitch Katz, any patient, virtually every patient that presents with COVID-19 is given a cycle of hydroxy. And when I asked Dr. Katz why, was it because the federal government was telling you to do that, or because he thought it may work? And he said very clearly that it may work. So that was the sum and substance of the discussion. The media is trying to blow it up as a big debate, but I can tell you that within the room, the decision was a sound one, and it was unanimous.
So what does Dr. Fauci want? Does he want more testing?
Look, I'll let Tony speak for himself. You've seen he takes the view that it's important to have controlled studies, randomized studies, and to go through the science and come to the end and determine what's going on. And as a social scientist myself, I totally agree with that. But there's also the point of view that we are in war. President Trump is a wartime president. In the fog of war, we might take more risk than we otherwise would. And given the track record of the drug over many, many years treating malaria, and there are side effects, but it's been used a lot in lesser doses, the decision's been made by many doctors to prescribe it, and if it saves lives, that's a beautiful thing. I think history will judge who's right on this debate, but I'd bet on President Trump's intuition on this one because of all the doctors I've talked to and all the scientific papers I've read, and they're about this high.
Yeah. Of course, that's a conversation that every patient needs to have with their doctor to figure out what is the best care for them.